taking PSIR optional. It is also one of the most scoring optional papers. So regarding PSIR also, there may be a lot of queries which students may have regarding political science and international relations. To address all those queries and to help you make an informed choice regarding this optional, we are holding this workshop today evening, and which we will have a very elaborate discussion with you. Both of us will have this discussion and help you help resolve all your questions and queries regarding this option, and also let you know about the details about this optional paper, why this optional paper is so successful, why it is so scoring, why the success rate is so high. We are going to discuss all of that today in our discussion. The workshop students will be divided into 3 sections. First of all, Dr. Sushant, he is going to have a discussion with you on GS, what are the interlinkages between the GS papers and the PSIR optional syllabus, which is one of the reasons for its high success. Also, he's going to have a discussion with you on PSIR paper 1, and he will briefly discuss the syllabus of PSIR paper 1 and also certain topics related to PSIR paper 1. Then I would also have a session with you in which I will discuss with you the strategy which you should follow to prepare for this optional paper, and also I will have a discussion with you on PSIR paper 2. I hope you know the optional paper has 2 papers, paper 1 and paper 2. So I will hold a discussion on paper 2. And the last section of our workshop will be the Q&A section, where we will all invite your questions and queries and try and address that. So the workshop would be divided into these 3 sections. So let's begin the workshop, students. Are you all ready for the workshop? So let's begin it, students. So I'll hand over the stage to Dr. Sushant Verma. He will start with PSIR paper 1 discussion, and I'll return later in the workshop. Thank you so much, students. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Good evening, all of you. Yes, online students, I hope the voice is clear now. Please confirm. Okay. Now, see, at this stage of a preparation, optional plays a very important role, and the choice of a good optional can help you ace this examination with a good rank. So as I say, optional is like your jackpot, and there are 3 factors which you should keep in mind while choosing the optional. Okay, the first factor is which I say is what matters is your interest in optional. Interest. Second, the ability, the intention to work hard. Intention to work hard, as well as the proper guidance and material. So basically, these are the 3 crucial factors which you should always keep in mind while choosing the optional. Now, interest is important. If you have interest in that particular subject, you can give your 100% in that. Okay, and as Iqbal sir said that you have to stick with that optional for at least 2 years, and that interest plays a very important role. If you do not choose an optional in which you have interest, or you lose interest in that optional, you will be stuck with that optional. So the difference between I and you which makes the difference. So keep in mind, if you are appearing in 2027, sorry, if 2026 also, then also by the time you clear it will be 2027. So at least for 2 years you have to study optional thoroughly, and it is your interest which propels you in understanding that optional in a better manner. Second thing I will say is intention to work hard and translating it into action. Okay, to have a command over optional, you need to work hard, and there is no shortcut to success. Keep that in mind. Your kids are of Insta age, reels, that maximum the attention span is around 1 minute. Okay, that should not be there. So your intention to work hard, and BSc does not require donkey work. It requires smart work, and to ensure that you need a proper plan, and that's why proper guidance and material is important. Okay, now as Iqbal sir mentioned that PSIR optional is one of the most sought after optional, and especially majority of students who choose the optional, they are of non-PSIR background, and they do really well in this optional. In fact, rank 1 today, Shakti Dubey, you can see she was a non-PSIR candidate. So You have to keep in mind that yes, PSIR is one of the better performing optional as far as UPSC data is concerned. You can go to UPSC's website and see the success rate. It's around 10%. And the comprehensive coverage of the syllabus gives you an idea also about the greater predictability of the questions. So where the guidance and material is also very crucial in deciding your success in optional. And you have to keep in mind that this PSIR optional is one of the sought after optional because of its greater interlinkages with GS syllabus. Now this greater interlinkage with GS syllabus is one of the reason why this optional is very important and it is sought after. So basically, if I say this is utility of PSIR as the optional. Now, what are the interlinkages? For that, we have given in the material, the first material. You must have got 3 materials today, online students also. The first deals with general information is there about the optional, including the syllabus. Second material and third material will be a handout of paper 1 as well as paper 2 respectively. It's a sample handout which we give in the class. Okay. Now, as far as interlinkage with GS syllabus is concerned, you can see now as you can see that PSI is one of the best performing optional, and as it's clearly mentioned that there is at least one essay topic related with PSIR syllabus, especially with the essay paper becoming a bit philosophical. You scan the previous 5 years essay papers. I hope you know that there are 2 essays to write, section A and section B. You'll find that with your background of PSIR, you can easily answer at least one question from each of the topics and give your best. So PSIR will help you in mains preparation. Essay is there, as well as 4 papers of GS, paper 1, paper 2, 3 and paper 4. And you can see that if we talk about the paper 1 syllabus, okay, that how lot of topics of paper 1 is covered in PSIR paper. Now the freedom struggle, for example, is the very first topic of paper 1 section B. You can see on page number 6, it is, you have the syllabus, paper 1 section B. So very first topic is freedom struggle and philosophies like communism, capitalism, socialism, effects of globalization, communalism, regionalism, secularism, or isms are basically ideologies. That's what we are going to discuss. Now, if I show you the PSIR syllabus, it will make you understand that why I'm saying so. Now, you can see on the same material, page number 6, the syllabus is given. And you can see the political ideologies like liberalism, socialism, Marxism, Gandhism. All these are important ideologies which are mentioned in paper 1 of GS. And you can see that's how we are going to discuss them extensively. If you see in GS paper 1, as I mentioned, the freedom struggle was given. That is clearly on section B of paper 1. Freedom struggle is there. You have to study. Paper 1 syllabus talks about globalization. And you can see the globalization is a topic in both paper 1 as well as paper 2. Can you see this topic, liberalization and economic reforms, in paper 1 section B? And if I change the next page, you can see on page number 9, it talks about effect of globalization. And you can see how this globalization responds from developed and developing countries. So we have to discuss globalization in greater detail in paper 2 section A, as well as effects of globalization in Indian context, since we launched LPG reforms in 1991. This is what you discuss, much more than what is required in GS. So basically, how many topics of paper 1 of GS, they are already covered in the the PSIR paper I mentioned. As far as GS paper 2 is concerned, as you can see, it says entire GS paper 2, which includes Indian government and politics and Indian foreign policy. What we say GSIR and what we talk about GS polity. It is subsumed under section B of both the papers. So this Indian foreign policy and IGP Indian government and politics is section B of paper 1. Indian foreign policy is section B of paper 2. That's what you cover. So whatever you are going to study in PSIR, it is at much deeper level than what you study in GS. And obviously with your background, you can also, it can also help you in a very good manner when you appear in the interview. Why I'm saying so? Because in interview, you find many of the questions are related to current affairs. Current affairs related to developments in Indian politics or with respect to international relations, like what is happening in Gaza. Gaza plan, peace plan presented by President Trump, for example. So how good understanding of both section B of paper 2 and section B of paper 1, which includes India's foreign policy and includes Indian government and politics. That will help you appear in paper 2 with a greater deal of confidence. Now, there are many topics of GS paper 3 which are already covered here in both paper 1 and paper 2 of PSIR, like land reforms, India and Green Revolution. I discussed effects of liberalization on Indian economy. I just mentioned LPG. Issues related to IPR, that's what we teach in WTO in paper 2, World Trade Organization. And role of external and non-state actors. Can I say terrorists are non-state actors? That's what we studied terrorism as one of the concerns in GS paper 2. Security challenges to internal security. Now, internal security, there are traditional threats as well as non-traditional threats. What are traditional threats? Military action. Like what India did in Operation Sindoor. Did India carry out military strike on Pakistan targets? Yes. But what was the trigger factor? Pahalgam terror attack. So Pahalgam terror attack will be part of the non-traditional security threats. Cyber security, non-traditional. Oil spillage in the ocean, non-traditional. Piracy, example of non-traditional. That's how in paper 2 you discuss extensively about the concept of security and how it has changed from traditional security to the notion of human security. Can I say global warming and climate change is a threat to human security? Yes, in that sense. So the concept of security, which we'll be discussing in greater detail in paper 2 of PSIR syllabus. And that's how you find that this in GS paper 4, contribution of moral thinkers and philosophers. Aristotle, Plato, Gandhi, Ambedkar, John Rawls. UPSC has asked question on all these thinkers and philosophers in your ethics paper. And that's why we discussed extensively in Indian political thought and Western political thought. So obviously, you will have a better understanding of these philosophers, which will help you in writing a good answer in GS also. And these ethical issues in international relations and funding. I'll give you one example. I mentioned Gaza. UN says what is happening in Gaza is genocide. Has Indian Prime Minister welcomed Trump's peace plan and said Trump's leadership? Yes, because our effort is to ensure peace in West Asia. India has always said that killing of the innocent people is not justified either in Ukraine war or whether in Gaza war. At the same time, Israel's security should also be taken care of because terrorism is a threat to human security also. So India strikes a balanced position as far as terrorism and humanitarian aid of people of Gaza is concerned. This is nothing but ethical issues in international politics. Do you know the term called MNCs? What are MNCs? multinational corporations. You know what is the world's worst industrial disaster? 1984 Bhopal disaster, world's worst industrial disaster. So MNCs, why Bhopal gas? It was gas of Union Carbide. How Union Carbide, in an effort to pursue profit, did not take care of the these safety considerations, and how there was a gas leak. If such a gas leak had happened in countries like US, Union Carbide would have faced criminal charges there. Who knows, perhaps shutdown of the Union Carbide itself. But why it is not in India? Because in global south, there is a weak enforcement of the safety regulations, of the environmental regulations. You know, third world countries have become dumping ground for e-waste. In your ecology and environment, you learn about e-waste. What is e-waste? Electronic waste, used laptops, mobiles, they are dumped in third world countries. That is also ethical issues in international relations. All this we discuss in paper 2 in detail, in a much more broader perspective. So this is how one of the reason why PSIR has been attractive optional is because of great linkages with GS syllabus, and in mains as well as in interview. Your strong command over PSIR syllabus will help you give a good answer in prelims and write a good answer in mains. And that is why one of the reason why PSIR is a top performing optional is because of its utility aspect I mentioned. Now, regarding proper guidance and materials, you have got the sample also of paper 2 material as well as paper 1 material. This is what we give in class, and our focus will be on explanation. Iqbal sir will talk in detail about that. What are the, how we intend to proceed further. Now, I will proceed further by discussing the paper 1 syllabus. Okay. Now, as all of you are aware that any optional has two papers, paper 1 as well as paper 2. Now, paper 1 of PSIR, it consists of two sections, section A and section B, and paper 2 also consists of section A and section B. Now, this division of the paper is also reflected in the question paper, where section A is from this section and section B questions are from section B. I hope you know that you have to altogether have 8 questions. Out of 8 questions, you have to select 5 questions. And paper is of 250 marks each. 250 for paper 1, 250 for paper 2. Now, as far as section A is concerned, on page number 6, can you see what is the section A? What is the heading of section A? It talks about political theory. And section B, it talks about Indian government and politics. Similarly, on paper 2, what is section A? Section A is called as international politics and CGP, comparative government and politics. And section B is of Indian foreign policy. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I will be focusing more on paper 1. Iqbal sir will discuss paper 2. Now, the first fundamental thing which you should always keep in mind is what I say in my GS classes also, that a good candidate is expected to know the syllabus like the back of his or her hand. So you should know syllabus thoroughly, because if you know the syllabus thoroughly and you have gone through the PYQs, it gives you a definite direction to your preparation. You know what to study, how to study. That is importance of syllabus and PYQs. So if I briefly discuss section A and section B of paper 1. Now, political theory. If anybody asks you what is theory, how will you define theory? How will you define theory? If I ask you, tell me what is a theory? Have you heard Newton's saw an apple falling from a tree? And what Newton said increased our problem? because we have been studying there since our schools. What is theory? He saw how apple fell from the tree and he tried to explain it in a systematic manner. So what is theory? Theory is simply systematic knowledge. It is systematic knowledge of a phenomena. Systematic knowledge of a phenomena. And if I add the adjective here, political theory, it simply means systematic knowledge of a political phenomena. For example, I hope all of you are aware of what is happening in Ladakh. Democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. In democracy, there is protection of rights of the people. In democracy, people have right of debate, dissent, and discussion. So what happened in Ladakh? There was a demand for sixth schedule. There was a demand for jobs. There was a demand for statehood. And how it led to violence. The primary job of the state is to maintain peace and security. So a balance has to be struck between states' needs and states' duty of maintaining security and people's right to protest. So if we examine Ladakh systematically, the protest in Ladakh, we have to examine it through the lens of political theory. So political theory is simply systematic knowledge of a political phenomena. Now, for the sake of convenience, if I say this political theory can be further subdivided in terms of the thought, in terms of ideologies, and in terms of concepts. Now, if you see page number 6, all of you come to page number 6. Now, page number 6, as you can see, this is political theory and Indian politics. Now, if you talk about topic number 9 and 10, and topic number 9 and 10, can you see? It talks about, topic number 9 and 10 talks about political thought. Political thought is of two types, Indian and Western. What is thought? It is a systematic reflection of a thinker about events of his or her time. Your Indian political thought talks, it starts with Dharma Shastra, Artha Shastra, and Buddhist tradition. Who wrote the book Artha Shastra? Kautilya. Now, Kautilya wrote Artha Shastra in which condition? What was the condition of India at that time? India was facing invasion by Alexander. And Kautilya's theory, Arthashastra, was in response to what was happening at that time. Kautilya became founder of the first centralized empire in India, that is Magad Empire. He was the brain behind that. And Kautilya believed tyranny is better than anarchy. What is anarchy? No government is there, disorder is there. What is tyranny? A ruler ruling with an iron hand. So ruler may rule unpopularly, fine, but ruler is important to maintain order in society. So for Kautilya, tyranny was better than anarchy. And Kautilya gave what is called as the realist tradition. He was a realist thinker. Realist thinker focus on what is to be done rather than what ought to be done. That in what you are facing, politics is nothing but struggle for power. And a king has to take recourse to good as well as so-called evil means. The purpose is to ensure safety of the people. So what is to be done? Nip the problem in the bud itself. Do not be worried about morality or immorality. That's Kautilya's realist tradition. And Kautilya is also compared with a Western philosopher called as Machiavelli. Machiavelli, he wrote in 16th century. And Machiavelli said that in a corrupt society, you need rule of a strong prince. Machiavelli said the prince should have the qualities of a lion and fox. The king should change colors like a chameleon. And is the word secularism mentioned in India's constitution? Yes. What is secularism? Separation of state and religion. The idea of secularism in modern times started in Machiavelli's thought. Machiavelli talked about king should have the qualities of a lion and a fox. Lion. Why lion is powerful? Strength. Lion, power of lion deters the enemies. And fox, very clever, avoid the traps. King should be like chameleon, changing colors depending upon the circumstances. In times of normalcy, follow ethical politics. But when there is a danger to your rule, exactly what Kautilya said, you can follow any means. Kautilya talked about Sam, Dam, Dand and Bhed. Divide and rule, that is Bhed. Dand means use of force. And that was both are called as realist thinkers. So why it is important to study their ideas? Because they grapple with some of the issues which humankind still confront today. Is secularism an important feature of modern polity today? Yes. Whether you see France, whether you see US, whether you see India, yes. Your syllabus talks about Gandhi and Aurobindo. Aurobindo was the first person who gave the idea of Swaraj. Swaraj means Poon Swaraj, complete independence from the British. And Gandhi added a lot of dimensions to the Swaraj, cultural dimension, economic dimension. Ambedkar. Who was Ambedkar? Father of India's constitution. Ambedkar had said, if Tilak were born as an untouchable, he would have not have said, Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. What Tilak would have said, abolition of untouchability is my birthright and I shall have it. Tilak was a Brahmin, Ambedkar was a Dalit. And for Ambedkar, freedom from internal tyranny is more important than freedom from British rule. Swaraj will mean nothing to me if as a Dalit, I am still not allowed to enter the temples. If I still face the notion of purity and pollution. And Ambedkar was inspired by ideas of French Revolution. What were the ideals of French Revolution? Incorporated in the preamble of our constitution also. It talks about liberty, equality and fraternity. That's why it is important to study Ambedkar. So this is how we have to study these Indian as well as Western political thinkers. And when we teach Western political thinkers, we'll start with Plato. Plato is called as father of political philosophy. Plato had talked about corruption. Corruption. Is corruption still a major problem today? Yes, you can see flyovers collapsing. An ex-president of France was recently convicted of corruption. Nicolas Sarkozy and given a 5-year sentence. Kautilya had said, corruption is like having honey on the tongue and not tasting it. Corruption cannot be eliminated. What you need is to check the corruption. So that is why we have to study these thinkers, Indian political thought and Western political thought. Now, if you see, I also mentioned political ideologies. And these political ideologies, liberalism, socialism, Marxism, fascism, Gandhism and feminism. Have you heard of something called Cold War? What was Cold War? An ideological battle between US-led bloc and Soviet-led bloc. This was nothing, but this was a contest between liberalism and Marxism. Liberalism said property should be in private hands. Like factories, everything should be in private hand. Marxism says no, that is a source of exploitation. Property should be owned by the community. After independence, did India adopt a mixed economy? public ownership existing side by side with private ownership. And that's how it led to the division of the world, liberal and Marxist. Fascism, Hitler came and Hitler said it was just a denial of democracy. In democracy, do we say one person, one vote, one value? Yes, everybody is equal. Whether it is a rickshaw puller, whether it is Mukesh Ambani, the value of their vote will be same. And fascism says all bullshit. Instead of equality, fascism believed in hierarchy. Who is supreme? The leader is supreme. And whatever I say, your duty to obey it unquestionably. Your duty to follow it unquestionably. And fascism deny sexual equality. Women are subordinate. That will be questioned by feminism. So feminism talks about rights of women. They say how women still face disadvantage because of their gender. If I ask you, see Supreme Court judges. How many judges of Supreme Court are women? It is less than 10%. How many members of parliament in Lok Sabha are women? It is less than 15%. Is it about systematic discrimination of women? Yes. And that is why feminists say this discrimination should be removed. Now, if you see these concepts, are all these concepts mentioned in India's preamble? For example, do we talk about equality, justice, India's preamble? Do we talk about democracy in India's preamble? Notion of rights are there, and obviously power is there. So which type of state Indian Constitution says? We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. What is a democracy? Where there is accountability of the government to the people. What is democracy? Where people can keep the government in check. What is democracy? Which talks about rights of the people. I mentioned about Ladakh. Sonam Wangchuk has his wife filed a petition in Supreme Court that is called as habeas corpus petition. Habeas corpus petition protects you against illegal detention. And Supreme Court, as a custodian of fundamental rights, has to come to rescue of that person who has been charged under illegal detention. So democracy is about protecting rights of the people. So all these we will be discussing in detail. Equality not only means what feminists will say. Equality should first start in the family. There is a patriarchy, inequality in the family, where male dominate female. All of you present in the class, if I ask you, who takes the final decision about your family? Is your father, mother, or both? In a patriarchal society, it is father. Only in some of you, you might raising and say, mother calls the shots. But it is basically males. And that is why they say equality only will mean when there is equality in the family. So justice, if you see India's preamble, it talks about which justice? Social, political, and economic. What is social justice? Empowerment of the weaker sections. Dalits, are they given fixed representation in Indian Parliament as per their proportion in the population? Yes. Reservation is an example of social justice, helping the weaker sections to come at par with the stronger sections. Social justice. And this reservation is given to those sections of society which are historically disadvantaged, like blacks in US, women in India. Panchayats and municipalities, 50% of the seats are reserved for women. That is a political empowerment of women. And political empowerment of women will lead to political justice. In India, what does Article 29 and 30 say? Protection of rights of minorities. Political justice means minorities also have to be given protection in the constitution. So how cultural and educational minorities have been protected under, so cultural and religious minorities have been protected under Article 29 and 30. And this is because Indian constitution makers were guarded by ideals of secularism. And secularism talks about Sarva Dharm Sambhav. State will not discriminate against you on the ground only of religion. So what are these concepts that we discuss in detail? And that is why the first, if you see, political theory consists of thought that is Western as well as Indian. It consists of political ideologies, and we have discussed concepts, liberty, equality, justice, etc. that we will be discussing in detail. Now, section B of this paper, section B of this paper consists of Indian government and politics. Now, when we talk about Indian government and politics, most of the students they commit one serious mistake, is that they equate it with GS polity. How? Let us see the syllabus. The same topics which you will be discussing in your GS papers, GS polity, is given as Indian government and politics. Leave the first topic, rest of the topics we are going to discuss. For example, making of Indian's constitution, salient features of Indian constitution, fundamental rights and duties, directive principles, union executive, legislature, judiciary, state executive, legislature and judiciary, panchayati raj, grassroots democracy, federalism, party system. That's what you will be studying in GS polity also. Then what is the difference between GS polity and optional Indian government and politics, and why students do not get good marks in section B of both the papers? Is that the right GS answer? General answer instead of academically rich optional answer. See, every optional has its own demands. If you're not fulfilling the demand and just writing what you study in your GS classes, you will be getting general marks, not optional specific marks. So how to make your answer optional specific? You have to link it with theories, as well as gives the views of scholars. These are the two crucial ingredients in making your answer in section B of both the papers academically rich. I will give you for example. Now, if you see topic number 10. Topic number 10 talks about party system. And can you see there is a topic, it talks about trends in electoral behavior. Trends in electoral behavior. And the same material we have given you. Just see paper 1 material among the 3 materials which you have got. Can you see trends in electoral behavior is one of the material? Okay. So if the question comes in that, how to link it with theory? Simple reason, when I teach you political theory and approaches, we will be discussing an approach called as behavioralism. What was this approach? Behavioralist approach, which focused on studying the actual behavior of the people in the actual political situation. How people behave, that people as the voter, people as the power holder, people as the power seeker, how they actually behave. In 1 month's time, Bihar elections will take place. And Bihar election, who's the power holder now? Chief Minister of Bihar, Nitish Kumar. Who's the power seeker? Rahul Gandhi and Tejasvi Yadav. How they actually behave in a situation. Has Nitish government, if you see today's newspaper, Nitish government says we have launched new programs and schemes for Indian government. Nitish government has increased DNA's allowance to the government employees by 3%. And this is to influence the behavior of the people. Few days back, Indian Prime Minister, with a click of a button, he distributed crores of rupees in the accounts of women of Bihar as a part of women empowerment. And this is at the time of elections. So how they are behaving? They are carrying out welfare measures. And have you heard of something called SIR? Not, sir. Okay. Special Intensive Revision. It was in news. And that's how they filed a case in Supreme Court also. And Supreme Court said Election Commission should focus on inclusiveness, not on excluding. Because democracy is meaningless if people are excluded. And this is how the power seekers, they petition in the Supreme Court that this should not lead to exclusion of the voters. And on which grounds do voters vote? That's what is explained in the material. Voters of India, if I ask you, you must have voted one and again. I hope all of you have voted at least in any one of elections since you became eligible for voting. Is there anybody who has not voted? Okay. Apart from the age reason, why you haven't voted? Last benches? Okay. Yes, you? Age. I said apart from the age reason. Why anybody not voting? You must at least voted in your college elections. Age is not required. So you voted in Delhi University elections, for example. On which ground did you vote? Somebody said, I got a free ticket to PVR. So I voted. Somebody say, oh, he gave me free lunch. He gave me a lot of incentives, monetary incentive also. That's why I voted. At the time of elections, many candidates go in hostels with a bag full of goodies for the people. Why I voted? Because I like the personality of the candidate. Because I like the programs, how he's promised that we will be, as students, will be given subsidized metro passes. So commuting in metro will become cheaper. Which grounds? Exactly. So on which grounds do voters vote? Voters vote on various grounds. And that is vote on the ground of caste, vote on the ground of religion, vote on the ground of ideology. The voters vote on the ground of political factors like corruption, for example, to name a few. So if I say in the basis of language, they also vote. Caste is one of the most important determinants. And in the elections, whichever elections it takes place in India, caste plays a very important role. When political parties give the tickets to the candidates, they keep the composition of the voters, caste composition of the voters in mind. In a constituency dominated by Brahmin voters, in all likelihood, a Brahmin will get maximum number of votes. Nowadays, gender is also becoming an important factor. So success of NDA government in Maharashtra was one of the reason was Ladli Behna scheme, that women were given financial incentives by the state. Same is of the current Chief Minister of Jharkhand. He also had launched a pro-women scheme before elections, and women voted in huge numbers for him. In Bihar, prohibition was launched in 2016. That's why women voters who suffered from domestic violence, they supported Bihar Chief Minister. So in all the elections, gender is an important factor. So that's what the material says, on which ground. And if you see, we have included the views of the scholars also. Christopher Zafrale, Sanjay Kumar, Pratap Bhanu Mehta, Rekha Saxena, all these views of the scholars, it is included in your material. At the end of the material, can you see I have also included a PYQs? At the end of the material, PYQs. And what does PYQ says? The same question which UPSC asked. That does social and economic factors play a more important role than political factors? Can you see? In your material at the end, I've included a PYQs also. Previous year's question. So basically, all these topics you will be discussing. If I say social movements in India and all these topics, federalism, statutory institutions, and one dream institutions of you, which recently completed 100 years, Union Public Service Commission, NHRC, National Human Rights Commission. NHRC was said to be toothless tiger by its critic. Popular tiger, if I say. Tiger's main strength is the jaw of the tiger. What does toothless tiger means? A tiger which cannot bite. Why NHRC is called as toothless tiger? Because many of the recommendations of NHRC are not implemented, they are not binding. So one of the ways how to strengthen NHRC is a watchdog of human rights in India, is to give it more power. That is what we have to discuss the institutions. Now, when we discuss about center-state relations, here we talk about regional aspirations. I mentioned Ladakh case. Is it about regional aspirations of Ladakh? Yes. When Article 370 was removed, Ladakhis were happy that finally we have come out of shadow of Jammu and Srinagar. But then they realized that our ecology is in danger, our land is in danger. And how to give what they are demanding? Schedule 6. What they are demanding? Separate state. Statehood. Because statehood, that will give them a say in the decision-making structures. Representative institutions. That is example of regional aspirations and tendencies. So here, that's what we have to discuss, and all these topics. So you'll be studying governor in GS also, governor in optional also. But when we study governor in optional, we have to discuss it with the theories as well as views of the scholars. And if you're not writing that, you will not get marks. So this is about the syllabus, and just to help you understand, it talks about Indian government and politics. So basically, this is how section B is linked it with theories as well as views of the scholars. And this is section A as well as section B of both the paper 1 as well as paper 2. Now, colleague Iqbal sir. Okay. Now, Iqbal sir will be discussing about paper 2. Any questions so far? As far as this is, now this is a brief discussion. So we'll be focusing more in detail when we take up the papers. And normally I start with paper 1 section A, where I focus, where we say that, where we say that this section A of paper 1, we say that this, if I say political thought and ideologies, can you say it is topic number 8, 9 and 10 of section A? Refer to page number 6. Can you say it is topic number 8, 9 and 10? We will take up the doubts later. Colleague also. Okay. So topic number 8, 9 and 10. Can you see? Paper 1 section A. So once you understand 8, 9 and 10, it gives you a very solid footing to understand rest of the concepts, rest of the topics from topic number 1 to topic number 7. And this constitutes the base. So when I start, I will start with Western political thought, then we discuss Indian political thought, and then we will take up a discussion on political ideologies. Once we finish that, then we move on to discussion of the concepts. Okay. Now, so This is as far as discussion of paper 1 is concerned, and Iqbal sir will be briefly discussing section A and section B. Then we will take up your questions. How will we proceed? How we will go? That Iqbal sir will focus on that. Okay. Now, how many of you are with PSIR background? Okay, two. And you know why students of the non-PSIR background do better in most of the cases? The student with PSIR background, they have a tendency to diversify. That they try to read more and more and more. And keep in mind, it is better to read one standard text 10 times rather than reading 10 standard text one time. So the students of non-PSIR background stick to what teachers tell them. They religiously follow it. That's why they're in a very good position. I will ask Iqbal sir to on that. Thank you.
So students, you had a fruitful discussion about paper 1 with Sushant sir. So let's now, I will help you understand regarding PSIR paper 2. And also we'll, at the end of the discussion, we will also have a discussion on what sort of strategy we do follow in the course here to cover the PSIR syllabus and what also the previous year questions. So let's begin that discussion, students. So I'm going to discuss PSIR paper 2 syllabus with you. You had a discussion just about PSIR paper 1 syllabus. So let's have a discussion. So that you must just know that what sort of topics we do study in PSIR paper 2. You must have a. And also while discussing the syllabus, I'll let you know the requirement of PSIR paper 2, because a lot of students, they have this misunderstanding. They believe that PSIR paper 2 is about international relations, and international relation topics are also there in the GS syllabus. In GS paper 2 also you have IR. So a lot of students, they have this misunderstanding that whatever IR they are studying in GS, that will be sufficient to also answer questions in PSIR paper 2. That is a very big misconception, that you should not have this misunderstanding. The requirement of the GS paper is very different from the requirement of the optional paper. Yes, there is overlapping. And this overlapping will benefit you. How? If you have prepared for PSIR paper 2, then you can easily answer your GS questions. But if you think your GS knowledge will be help you answer optional questions, that is not going to happen. It's not the other way around. Okay. For example, are you fond of cricket? Even if you are not, you must have heard about players like Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, such players. They represent Indian cricket team. So they are playing cricket at the highest level. So if you ask them to represent Delhi cricket team, play domestic cricket, of course they will be able to do. Easily they will be able to do, because they're international players, they will be do very well in a domestic cricket also. Similarly, if you have done PSIR paper 2, you can easily attempt your GS questions also, because the level of PSIR paper 2 is much higher than the GS level. IR questions in GS will be much easier as compared to IR questions in PSIR paper 2. But if you think your GS knowledge can help you attempt PSIR paper 2 questions, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So this also you must understand. You also must understand what is the difference between the requirement, the GS requirement and the PSIR requirement. That also we'll discuss. So let's start our discussion. So the first 3 chapters of the syllabus, and of course, PSIR paper 2 is also divided into 2 sections, section A and section B. And the entire PSIR paper 2, I must tell you, the entire PSIR paper 2 is about international relations. What is the title of the optional? Political science and international relations. Paper 1 is political science. The entire paper 2 is international relations. And the international relations syllabus is divided into 2 sections, section A and section B. Section A is about theoretical portions of IR, concepts of IR, theories of IR, also international organizations. And section B is about Indian foreign policy. So let's discuss both the sections. Let's first discuss section A. And section A, the first 3 chapters. The first 3 chapters of section A are related to a topic called comparative politics. Comparative politics. The first 3 chapters are related to comparative politics. What do you mean by comparative politics? As the name does suggest. Name suggests comparative politics, which means that we must compare political systems of different states, different nations. Because what is IR, students? IR is study of relationship between the states of the world. I hope you know what do I mean when I say state. State means a nation. Okay. State is a political entity which has 4 features: sovereignty, territory, population, and government. So, for example, United Nations have 193 states as members. So, in IR, we study relationship between the states of the world. So, in order to have better understanding of international relations, in order to have comprehensive understanding of international politics, it is also important to do a comparison, to do a comparative study of the political systems of separate states. This comparative study is known as comparative politics, because political systems of different states are different. For example, a lot of you may think that India is a democratic state, US is also a democratic state, and therefore you may think that both have the same political system. No, you are mistaken. Yes, both are democracies, but their political systems are different. Can we point out certain differences here, students? First of all, India is a prime ministerial form of democracy. The Americans, US is a presidential form of democracy. Now, there's a lot of difference between presidential form of democracy and prime ministerial form of democracy. In the prime ministerial parliamentary form of democracy, what happens? The prime minister is member of the legislature. The prime minister has to be the member of either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. That is the parliamentary form of democracy which we have. But in America, there's a presidential form of democracy. In the presidential form of democracy, the executive, the president, is not a member of the legislature. In America, you will see there are 2 separate elections held. Presidential election is held separately, and the Congress elections are held separately. What is Congress? The legislature of America, the lawmaking body of America, is known as a US Congress, which also has 2 houses, like our parliament has 2 houses. It also has 2 houses. The lower house is known as the House of Representatives, and the upper house is known as a Senate. So, in order to elect members to House of Representatives and Senate, elections are held separately, and presidential elections are held separately. President in America is not a member of the legislature. Whereas in our country, we have common elections. We have common general elections for Lok Sabha. Like we had last year, we had general elections for Lok Sabha. We elected Lok Sabha MPs, and Lok Sabha MPs elected the Prime Minister. So one common election is held, but this is not true for America. In America, elections for House of Representatives is separate. Election for President is separate. President is not a member of a legislature. This complete separation of powers. Whereas in India's parliamentary form of democracy, executive is a member of the parliament. The ministers and the prime minister, they have to be a member of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. A non-member can be made a minister, but only for a period of 6 months, not more than 6 months. Second difference, students, you see that India is a multi-party system. When you look at Indian political system, we have multiple political parties, whereas America is a 2-party system. There are only 2 political parties in America, Democrats and Republicans. So therefore, there are many such, and nature of Indian political parties is also very different from nature of American political parties. So there is a lot of differences in political systems. Even though they may appear same, you may say both are democracies, but their political systems are very different. For example, what is the retirement age of the judges of Supreme Court of India? 65 years. 65 years is the age of retirement for the judges of the Supreme Court of India. And what is the retirement age for American Supreme Court judges? No retirement age. They are judges till death. So the judges of the Supreme Court of US, they have no retirement age. They can remain judge of the Supreme Court till their death. Whereas in India, the retirement age is 65 years. So a judge in Supreme Court of America is a judge forever. And that means he's not going to retire, or she's not going to retire. A vacancy in American Supreme Court is created only when after the judge dies, after death of the judge. But here in Indian Supreme Court, 65 years is the retirement age. So very different system is there. So you have to do this comparative analysis of political systems of different states. And why it is required? It is required because foreign policy of a state is dependent upon its domestic politics. Do you think political parties of America, leaders of America, politics of America, the public opinion of the people of America has an impact on American foreign policy? Yes, of course. And that same is true for India as well. So if you want to understand foreign policies of different states, you must understand their domestic political systems. Therefore, this subject is very important, subject of comparative politics. Doing a comparative analysis of political systems of different states of the world. Doing comparison between the states which are capitalist, the states which are socialist. Doing a comparative analysis of the political systems of developed countries and developing countries, capitalist countries and socialist countries, global north and global south. What is global north? The rich countries of the world, majority of the rich countries of the world are located in the northern hemisphere. Of course, there will be exceptions also. I'm saying majority. Therefore, the rich world is known as global north, whereas the majority of the poor countries of the world are located in the southern hemisphere. Therefore, we use the term global south for them. So we have to do a comparative analysis. We have to compare political systems of different states with each other. And now to do that, many methods, many approaches, many theories and methods have been suggested, which are in our syllabus. For example, the political economy approach, political sociology approach, political culture approach, political modernization approach, political development approach. Multiple approaches have been suggested in the syllabus. And we're going to do a detailed study of that. In the second chapter, we're going to do a comparative study of formation of a state in different parts of the world. How state formation has happened in different parts of the world. In the capitalist, how a capitalist state emerges, how a socialist state emerges. What is the difference between state formation in the developed countries and the developing countries? The kind of state you see in the developed world is very different from the kind of state you see in a developing world. That differentiation, that comparison also we do. Then also we do comparative analysis of politics of representation and participation. And this is done especially with respect to those states which are democratic. In democratic states, which institutions or which entities are responsible for doing politics of representation and participation? Political parties, pressure groups, also known as interest groups, and also social movements. When we say that we elect our representatives, and our representatives, they do take care of our interests in the government and also in the opposition party members also. So when we elect our representatives in this whole politics of representation and participation, do you think there's a very important role played by political parties? A very important role played by interest groups, which are also known as pressure groups, and also a very important role played by social movements. For example, when I look about politics, when I study politics of representation, participation in India's case, we'll have to see, first of all, India has a multi-party system. So what is the impact of the multi-party system in India on the politics of India, on the state in India? Then also we'll have to look at what is the nature of pressure groups in India. Have you seen such pressure groups like Bharatiya Kisan Union? Do you think they put pressure on government by holding protests and dharnas and force governments to change their policies? So what is their role? Different types of pressure groups, different types of political parties also. Well, political parties also, their nature may also change over the years. Their party system also, like we have a multi-party system. America has a two-party system. China has only one-party system. Only one political party, Communist Party of China, is allowed to exist there. So what is role of political parties? What is role of pressure groups? What is the role of social movements in advanced industrialized countries, in the rich countries, developed countries, and developing countries? In this chapter, we will discuss what is the difference between political parties of the developed world and political parties of the developing world. What is the difference between the pressure groups of the developed world and the pressure groups of the developing world? What is the difference between social movements of the developed world and the social movements of the developing world? Like recently, there was a huge social movement in America. Do you remember Black Lives Matter protest? Hashtag Black Lives Matter. That was an example of a social movement which had emerged against racial discrimination. And we also see social movements in India. Recent, the farmers' protest you must have seen happened a few years ago that represented a kind of a movement in India in favor of rights of the farmers. Before that, we also saw Anna Hazare movement. You remember in India? Anna Hazare movement had happened against corruption. India against corruption. So there are social movements happening in developing countries, social movements also happening in developed countries. We've also seen movements emerging all over the world, like, for example, hashtag Me Too movement. Do you remember that? The feminist movement. So there are different types of social movements which are there. So we have to discuss all of this. These 3 chapters is all about doing a comparison of political systems, political parties, party systems, also electoral systems, pressure groups, and social movements in the developed and the developing world, global north and the global south, capitalist and the socialist world. That is what we do in these first 3 chapters. Then students, the next chapter which is very important in your syllabus is the chapter of globalization. In multiple places in the syllabus, you will find this globalization. It's a very important chapter. We have to discuss what is a globalization and what impact globalization had on international politics. Like India also liberalized, privatized, and globalized. If you remember, in the year 1991, when India did undergo economic reforms. So we have seen an emergence of a globalized world. And what is the impact of globalization on world politics? What is the impact of globalization on foreign policies? That's what we discuss here. We also must discuss what is the impact of globalization on the developed world and the impact on the developing world. What is the present status of globalization? Right now, we are going through crisis of globalization. Why? Because developed countries, rich countries like US, they are also now not willing to globalize. In fact, rich countries like US now are following policies of protectionism. That means they have started using trade barriers, tariff barriers, which is against the idea of a free trade. And globalization is based on the idea of a free trade. Organizations like WTO was formed in the 90s, World Trade Organization, to promote free trade. America used to be a very big supporter of free trade, globalization, and WTO. But the same America today, same Donald Trump today, the American president is saying WTO is the worst trade organization in the world. And he's not willing to do free trade anymore. And his favorite word is a tariff. 100 times a day he would utter the word tariff. He's giving tariff threats to everybody in the world, trying to impose tariffs on everyone. And that means America is now reluctant to globalize. America is now reluctant to do free trade. And there's a backlash against globalization now, coming from rich developed countries like US, which has caused the crisis of globalization. Why is this happening? Why America is behaving in this manner? What are the reasons behind Trump's tariff policy? What is the impact of globalization on world politics? Which set of states have benefited from globalization? Impact of globalization on developed countries, developing countries. These are all very fascinating topics, very interesting topics. And all of this we do in this chapter of globalization. And globalization is mentioned in multiple places in the syllabus also. Then students, I come down to the most important chapters, two most important chapters of the syllabus of PSIR paper 2. The first one is approaches to study international relations. Approaches to study international relations. In fact, this is the most important chapter. In fact, my optional classes, they will start with this chapter. The first chapter I teach, so the entire PSIR paper 2, I will teach the entire PSIR paper 2. And when my lectures would start with you, the first topic which I will discuss is approaches to study international relations. What do you mean by approaches? In order to study international relations, multiple approaches have been recommended in the academic discipline. You may also describe it as theories to study IR. Approaches to study IR or theories to study IR is one and the same thing. So theories of IR is the most important chapter of PSIR paper 2. Anybody who is preparing for PSIR, and as far as PSIR paper 2 is concerned, should always start with the theories of IR. And you must know what are different theories which have been proposed in the academic discipline of international relations to study international relations. There are multiple theories. For example, there's a theory called realism. There's a theory called idealism. There's a theory called Marxism. There's a theory called functionalism. There's a theory called system theory. There's a theory called also postmodernism, social constructivism, English school. There are multiple theories which have been proposed. Liberalism, neoliberalism, realism, neorealism. Multiple theories have been proposed to study international relations. And this is the most important chapter of the PSIR paper 2. All these theories we will discuss one by one. These are basically different narratives to study IR. Realist interpretation of IR is very different from a idealist interpretation of IR. It depends how do you look at IR, how do you interpret IR. Your interpretation of IR will determine what kind of policies you follow. For example, if I give you example of India, and if I talk about the origins of Indian foreign policy, the first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, his foreign policy was based on idealism. His foreign policy was based on idealism. And at the same time, in the same cabinet, we had another leader, very, very, very strong leader. His name was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's views on foreign policy was based on theory of realism. Then you had Indira Gandhi. Now, Indira Gandhi was completely unlike her father. Indira Gandhi's foreign policy was not idealist. Indira Gandhi's foreign policy was a realist. So there are different ways to look at IR. There's also a feminist perspective on international relations. There's also a Marxist perspective on international relations. Who are the biggest sufferers in wars? Who suffer the most in wars? Women and children. They're the biggest sufferers in wars. And majority of the IR theories do not take into consideration the suffering of women, do not take into consideration women perspectives. IR has become a gender blind discipline. Therefore, a new theory has come up called feminist theory of international relations. So there are multiple such theories which are there, and we have to develop expertise in these theories. Rote learning will not do. Rote learning of notes will not help you here. Complete conceptual clarity is required regarding theories of IR. Why? I will tell you. First of all, you will get questions on theories of IR. Direct questions will be asked in the exam on theories of IR. Second, in each and every question of PSIR paper 2, you will use theories to make your answer academically rich. That is the difference between a GS answer and a PSIR optional answer. For example, if I get a question in the GS paper, examine India-Pakistan relations in the light of the recent operation Sindoor. So in the GS paper, I will do only a factual analysis. I will only do a factual analysis that why India did Operation Sindoor, what were the objectives of Operation Sindoor, what have been India's achievements, how will this change the nature of India-Pakistan relationship, Pakistan's proxy war strategy. A factual analysis we will do in the GS paper. But when the same question with the same language is asked in the optional paper, that examine India-Pakistan relations in the light of Operation Sindoor, our approach will change. In the optional paper, we are not supposed to write only a factual answer. In the optional paper, we have to write an academically rich answer, an analytical answer. And how can you write an academically rich answer? By including theories of IR, by including key concepts of IR, which is not required in the GS paper. For example, the same question would come in the optional paper. We will write realist interpretation of India-Pakistan relations in the light of Operation Sindoor. Then we'll also write the liberal interpretation of India-Pakistan relations, Marxist interpretation of India-Pakistan relations, social constructivist interpretation of India-Pakistan relations. Various different theoretical perspectives we will use to understand India-Pakistan relations, along with the views of scholars and experts. That is what we are supposed to do in the optional paper, but not required in the GS paper. When we explain India-Pakistan disputes, we will use IR concepts like security dilemma, which is a concept given by the theory of realism. So this we will use all of this. We're going to use Doval doctrine, which is also based on realism. So all this is required in the optional paper, but we do not do it in the GS paper. That is a difference between GS paper and the optional paper. In the optional paper, we are going to write an academically rich analytical answer, where in each and every question of your PSIR paper 2, I strongly recommend you have to use the theories of IR. You have to use important key concepts of IR, because all these theories have given concepts. Realism has given certain concepts. Idealism has given certain concepts. Marxist and the feminist has given certain concepts, which we can use to evaluate international politics. So this chapter, theories of IR, is the foundation of PSIR paper 2. A candidate who is not well versed with theories of IR is bound to do very badly in PSIR paper 2. Why? Because such a candidate will end up writing GS answers and will not write optional answers. And the second most important chapter is key concepts of international relations, which are the most important concepts in IR. The concept of national interest, the concept of national security, the concept of balance of power, concept of nuclear deterrence, the role of non-state actors, transnational actors, the concept of collective security. All these are important concepts which have been given by different theories of IR. And these concepts also we have to use in our IR answers. In our IR answers, we will use these concepts. We will use concepts like security dilemma, nuclear deterrence, also balance of power. These concepts we are going to use. Different types of BOP does exist. Different definitions of security does exist. All this we are supposed to use in our answers to make our answers academically rich. So therefore, these two chapters are the most important chapters of your PSIR paper 2 syllabus. Most important chapters. Complete crystal clear theoretical understanding and conceptual clarity is required here. And we will start our course with these two chapters. And the next, students, the next part of the syllabus, of course, is changing international political order, which is actually very simple to understand. Why? Because you must all know, and you will agree with me, that international politics is not static. International politics is dynamic. International politics keeps on evolving, keeps on changing. Therefore, this chapter is regarding evolution of international politics. How international politics over the years have changed, how it has evolved, how world order has changed. For example, students, once upon the previous century, we did see existence of superpowers, which led to Cold War. So we must discuss a detailed discussion on Cold War. Complete detail about Cold War, how Cold War started, how Cold War ended, what were the reasons of the disintegration of Soviet Union, who was Mikhail Gorbachev, what was his policies which led to disintegration and breakdown of Soviet Union, why Cold War emerged, military alliances, complete discussion about Cold War. During Cold War, the world order was bipolar in nature. What is bipolarity? Arms race, all this we discuss. And then Cold War, during the Cold War, we also see emergence of a non-aligned movement. India was also a participant in NAM. What was India's role in NAM? Whether NAM is still relevant or not. All this we discuss. Then we discuss collapse of Soviet Union. Then why, so how Soviet Union collapsed and how Cold War ended. And now we are heading towards new Cold War. Cold War has ended, but now the world is heading towards new Cold War. And this time the new Cold War is being fought between US and China. Whereas the previous Cold War was between US and Soviet Union. Now UPSC is going to ask such questions. The contemporary relevance of these ideas, the new Cold War. So that also we discuss. So entire evolution of international politics that will be discussed in this particular chapter. And then you have this chapter, evolution of the international economic system. International economic system. International economic system is regulated by certain important international financial institutions, which are known as Bretton Woods institutions. Why do we describe them as Bretton Woods institutions? Why? Because students, during the Second World War, the rich, industrialized, developed countries of the world during Second World War, they all had a conference in New Hampshire in US in a resort town called Bretton Woods. The name of the resort was Bretton Woods, where they had a conference. In that conference, these multiple countries, they signed an agreement called Bretton Woods Agreement. On the basis of Bretton Woods Agreement, they decided to create certain institutions to regulate the world economy, to stabilize the world economy. And which were those institutions? Those institutions were IMF, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and also they had decided to form ITO, International Trade Organization, which they were not able to form. Therefore, instead of ITO, they ended up signing an agreement called GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, which in 1995 was replaced by WTO, World Trade Organization. So all these bodies like IMF and World Bank, they are described as Bretton Woods institutions, because these institutions have developed on the basis of the signing of the Bretton Woods Agreement. So this is what they are going, this is what we study in this particular chapter, the role of IMF, World Bank, WTO in international politics, complete study of that. Then students, the next particular chapter here is the United Nations. United Nations, a detailed discussion on role of United Nations. United Nations is a very important organization. Why was UN formed? For what purpose UN was formed? And whether UN has been successful or not. UN was formed to implement an idea called collective security, which I will explain to you in the classes. And whether it has been successful or not, what has been its performance? If not successful, then what changes are required in UN? If these changes and reforms are not done in UN, then UN will also lose relevance like its predecessor, League of Nations. This study we do, this complete study of UN we do in this particular chapter. Recently, you saw the UN General Assembly session happening in New York, where multiple states, they again requested that UN urgently needs a change and reforms because it is failing to uphold international peace and security. So detailed discussion on UN, theoretical perspectives on UN, realist perspective, liberal perspective, Marxist perspective on UN, all of this we discuss here. Then we also discuss here what has been India's role in UN, because that is also part of the syllabus. In the section B, it is mentioned India's role in UN. What has been India's contribution in UN? What has been India's stand on UN? What has been India's stand on UN reforms? India's contribution UN peacekeeping operations. A detailed discussion on that is also held. This is one of the favorite topics of UPSC. They've been asking several questions on United Nations. Again, students, you may get questions on UN in the GS paper also. But when you get the same UN question in the optional paper, you have to do a theoretical analysis of UN. Liberal perspective on UN, the realist perspective, the Marxist perspective, use different concepts and also views of the experts, scholars. None of this is required in the GS paper. That is, your GS answer becomes different from an optional answer. Then students, we also have this chapter, regionalization of world politics. What do you mean by regionalization of world politics? Students, UN has been failing. Therefore, more and more states, they are losing faith in UN. Therefore, we're seeing emergence of regional organizations. Regional organizations are emerging and they are becoming more and more prominent. For example, European countries have formed a regional organization called European Union. African countries have formed a regional organization called African Union. Southeast Asian countries have formed a regional organization called ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. South Asian countries have formed a regional organization called SAARC, South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation. North American countries had an agreement called NAFTA, North America Free Trade Agreement, which now has become USMCA, US-Mexico-Canada Agreement. So all these are in our syllabus, these regional organizations. We discuss them, we compare them, and we do comparison. When we do comparison, we get to this conclusion that the best possible example of regional cooperation in the world is European Union, where EU countries, they even follow common currency, if you are aware, Euro, which is possible because of European Union. They have a common monetary policy also. They have a common central bank also, common parliament also. So this European Union is the best example of regional cooperation in the world. Regional cooperation means countries of a particular region cooperating with each other, which will make that region more peaceful and more stable and more prosperous. Best example is EU. Worst example of regional cooperation is SAARC, South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation. Forget cooperating. No SAARC meeting has been held since 2014. The SAARC leaders have not even seen each other's face in the last 10 years. Forget cooperating with each other. So this cross comparison we do. We discuss these various regional organizations in this particular chapter. Then there's a chapter on global concerns, global challenges. What are global challenges? Do you think democracy is in a state of crisis in the world? Do you think democratic governments are becoming unstable in the world? You recently saw crisis in Nepal, Gen Z protest. You recently saw crisis in Bangladesh. 2 years ago, we saw a similar crisis in Sri Lanka. Democratic governments are becoming unstable. Democracy is in a state of crisis. We are seeing phenomena like democratic backsliding happening in the world. So this is something which we discuss in this particular chapter. A detailed discussion on this we do. Then also, students, the issue of human rights. You see, human rights are being violated right now in Gaza. Hundreds and thousands of innocent people are being butchered in Gaza. Human rights violations. Human rights are very important issue. Different theoretical perspectives on human rights. What's the Western world perspective on human rights? What is the Eastern world perspective on human rights? Perspective of developing countries. Perspective of post-colonial states. You know what is a post-colonial state? A post-colonial state is which has come out of a colonization. So this is also a very important chapter. Then environment is a very important global challenge. Global warming, climate change, environmental preservation. Here also you see a divide between global north and global south. Then also gender justice, like I told you, that feminist perspectives, women perspectives are being completely ignored in international politics. So that is also something which we have to discuss. Then terrorism is a global challenge. Nuclear proliferation is a global challenge. What is nuclear proliferation? Spread of nuclear weapons. More and more countries, they want to acquire nuclear weapons. Like Iran wants to acquire nuclear weapon. If more and more countries will acquire nuclear weapons, that is nuclear proliferation. Proliferation means spread, and the world will become less peaceful. It's not good for world peace. So how can we stop nuclear proliferation? There are multiple treaties for that. NPT, CTBT, FMCT. We have to discuss all of them. Then we also have to discuss what is the difference between nuclear proliferation and nuclear disarmament. There's a difference between nuclear proliferation and disarmament. Nuclear proliferation, nuclear non-proliferation is stopping the spread of nuclear weapons. That if, for example, if certain states have nuclear weapons, then new countries should not be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons. That is known as nuclear non-proliferation. But nuclear disarmament is having a world free of nuclear weapons. The ones who already has nuclear weapons, they should also give up nuclear weapons. So the nuclear disarmament, what efforts are being made for disarmament? What is India's viewpoint on NPT and CTBT and nuclear disarmament? All of this we do in complete detail. You may have also heard about bodies like NSG, Nuclear Suppliers Group, International Atomic Energy Agency. What is their role in nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament? So all this we do in this particular chapter, Contemporary Global Concerns. This is your Section A syllabus. Section A, which is all about international politics, important concepts and theories of IR, international organizations, and evolution of international politics and contemporary global concerns, and also comparative politics. Now we move on to Section B of your syllabus. Like I told you, Section B is India and the world. That means what is India's relationship with the world? This Section B is entirely focused on India's foreign policy. India's foreign policy. So the first chapter is about determinants of foreign policy and institutions of foreign policy. What do you mean by determinants and institutions, students? Determinants means factors. Which factors are responsible to formulate a foreign policy, or which factors does play a role in formulation of foreign policy? For example, do you think geography matters? Do you think geography has an impact on foreign policy? History has an impact on foreign policy? Culture has an impact on foreign policy? The international political dynamics have impact. Domestic politics have impact. Leadership has impact. Change of government has impact. So there are multiple factors which may influence a country's foreign policy. That is called determinants of foreign policy. What are determinants of Indian foreign policy? We discuss. Then we also discuss what are the institutions of Indian foreign policy. Which institutions have been developed in India to develop Indian foreign policy? For example, do you think PMO plays a role? Prime Minister's Office, Ministry of External Affairs, NSA. What is NSA? National Security Advisor. Do you think they play a role in formulation of foreign policy? Yes, of course. Then you must be aware there is also a National Security Council, which we have formulated, which plays a very important role in making foreign policy. Then we also have the role played by Parliament also. Parliament also plays a role in formulation of foreign policy. Role is also played by media. Role is also played by the economic sector. Role is also played by private sector. Role is also played by universities and think tanks. Multiple institutions do exist in India which play a very important role in formulating foreign policy. All of that we study in this first chapter. Determinants of Indian foreign policy and institutions of foreign policy. And then also what has been India's contribution to NAM. That I told you, this we discussed. I told you this is in the syllabus. India's contribution to NAM. Whether NAM is relevant for India or not. What is present government's position on NAM? We have evolved now from non-alignment to multi-alignment. All of this we discuss in this chapter. Then the next chapter is India and South Asia. What is India's relationship with its neighbors in South Asia? So India and South Asia, here we discuss SAARC. What has been the status of SAARC? That is South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation. What has been India's role in this? Why it is failing? Why South Asian Free Trade Agreement has failed? India's relationship with South Asian neighbors. India, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, India, Maldives, India, Nepal, India, Bhutan, India, Pakistan relations. What disputes do exist? Border disputes, river water disputes, refugee crisis. All of this we do in this particular chapter. And then we also discuss in this chapter India's Look East policy, which now Prime Minister Modi has renamed as Act East policy, which has been formulated to develop good relationship with the Southeast Asian countries. That also we do in this particular chapter. So this is also the inner syllabus, India and South Asia. All problems in South Asia, river water disputes, illegal migration problem, ethnic conflicts, insurgencies, border disputes in South Asia. All of this we discuss in this particular chapter from India's context. And the next chapter is India and the global South. You may have heard, students, India wants to become a voice of the global South. India wants to become the leader of the third world countries, leader of the poor world. Always since day one itself, India at all global platforms have tried to advocate the interests of poor and developing countries. We've always tried to help poor and developing countries in the world. And the poor and developing countries of the world are also described as global South, also described as third world countries. So India has been trying to advocate their interests. India have always stood up for them. So what is India's relationship with the global South? Recently, you may be aware, India hosted the G20 summit, in which India made sure that African Union is made a member of a G20. And African Union represents the poor countries of Africa. So India has always stood up for global South and poor and developing countries. That is what we study in this chapter. And then you have India and the global centers of power. That means India's relationship with the most important, powerful states of the world, which includes the US, which includes the European Union, which includes Japan. All of this is part of the global power centers, as you must be very well aware. And we discussed this in our classes. From a bipolar world, the world got converted into unipolar once Cold War ended. And now we are moving towards a multipolar. Multiple power centers are emerging in the world. You have a power center of US, of course, Europe, Japan, China, Russia. And what is India's relationship with all these power centers? That is also in our syllabus. Then what is India's role in the United Nations, like I told you? India's contribution in United Nations, that is in our syllabus. And then what? Because India is a nuclear weapon state. India is a nuclear weapon state. So what is India's nuclear doctrine? What is India's nuclear doctrine, which is based on the principle of no first use? Why India has not accepted NPT? Why India has not accepted CTBT? What is India's position on nuclear non-proliferation and nuclear disarmament? All of this is in our syllabus also, India and the nuclear question. So this also, detailed evaluation of India's nuclear doctrine we do in this particular chapter. Then also, even though in the handout it is missing here, but there's one more chapter, that is India and West Asia. India's relationship with West Asia, India's relationship with Afghanistan. West Asia will include countries like Israel, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, your Arab states, and Israel as well. Iran also. So relationship with West Asia, relationship with Afghanistan, that is also in our syllabus. What is India-Israel relationship? How it is changing over the years? What has been India's position on the Israel-Hamas war? All of this also we discuss here. So this is your PSIR paper 2 syllabus, section A and section B. And when you attempt your PSIR questions, how is your PSIR answer different from a GS answer? There are certain key ingredients of a PSIR answer. I'm talking about a paper 2. That is IR portion. So what are certain key ingredients? First of all, you have to write an academically rich answer. An academic, analytical answer is expected out of you as far as PSIR paper 2 is concerned. And how will you write an academically rich and analytically rich answer? You must include theories in your answer. Theories of IR. You must include key concepts of IR. And I know right now you don't know the theories and key concepts. That is what we will teach you in the classes. You also have to include views of experts and scholars in your answer. And you also have to give examples. So it cannot be just a factual answer. All this is required. Then only your answer will become academically rich, then also your answer will become analytical. That is what you are supposed to do in PSIR. But none of this is required in a GS paper. In GS paper, we've caught the facts, what has happened, and we also give examples. But this theoretical analysis we do not do. This theoretical analysis we do not do. Views of experts and scholars we do not quote. So that is how this is required in your PSIR paper, which we do separately for PSIR students only. This is not required in the GS exam. And therefore, it has to be a very detailed discussion on all of this. That is why I always tell students, rote learning will not help you, rote learning of notes. You have to develop in-depth theoretical understanding and conceptual clarity to attempt to write good PSIR answers. Now, students, let me also tell you that how do we go about as far as our course is here concerned in Vajiram and Ravi? How do we design our PSIR course? If you are here with us to prepare for PSIR, then what process we will follow, and you will also undergo the same process. And we also expect, as your teachers, we expect full cooperation from you to follow this process so that this course can be beneficial for you also. Because the whole purpose is that the students should benefit. If you are not able to benefit from the course, then what is the point of the course? So what are the special features of the course? I'll tell you. First of all, students, the whole purpose, the single-minded focus here is to provide one-stop solution for students, for optional students. When you spend here with the 5.5 months with us here, after 5.5 months, the objective is that you should be a ready product. You should be ready to attempt the mains exam. No more effort would be required, or no more work is required. So one-stop solution we intend to provide to you as far as our PSIR course is concerned. The classes which would be conducted, the classroom preparation is focused on conceptual clarity and theoretical understanding. It is not just the dictation of notes. It is not just mere dictation of notes. The classroom would be a more of a dialogue between students and teachers. Because we understand here the requirement of the exam is that only those candidates are qualifying this exam, the one who have theoretical understanding and crystal clear conceptual clarity. And that theoretical understanding and conceptual clarity we help develop among our students. So the entire classroom would be focused on explanation, examples, and helping you develop that conceptual clarity which is required. You know, you all must have received handouts today. You must have seen the kind of handouts we give in the classes. So whenever we teach a topic in the class, we give you class handouts. These are typed handouts. These are your class notes. So we're not going to waste time dictating notes that we will give you already in the form of class handouts. But the entire class will be focused on explanation of the topic. When you come here with us, to study with us, what is in your head? Why are you here? You are here to understand topics. You are here to understand the concepts of political science and international relations. If we make you sit here and I sit on the chair here and dictate you notes for 2 hours, then what is the point of the classroom? Notes you can even get in the market. It is anyways available. So what is the point of then coming to the classroom? Point of coming to the classroom is that you are able to understand topics. You're able to develop conceptual clarity because you all may be from different backgrounds. Somebody may be from humanities, somebody may be from sciences, somebody may be an engineer, somebody may be, a science graduate. Different academic backgrounds you belong to. So you all have to be brought to a level where you develop a good conceptual clarity of topics. And you have to understand in detail what is Plato, what is Aristotle, what is Marx, what is feminism, what is liberalism, what is realism. These are very complex topics. And for this, great deal of explanation is required. So the classroom program is based on that. Conceptual clarity and theoretical understanding. There will be no mere dictation of notes in the class. And also, exam-focused approach will be adopted in the classroom. And as far as we are concerned, like I told you, we will provide you well-researched, concise, and exam-ready study material. When you come to us, we don't recommend our students to buy any books. You don't have to buy any books. No book you'll have to buy. Because the entire syllabus and notes for the entire syllabus adhering to the requirement of the exam will be provided to you. On a daily basis, when you have lectures with us, class notes will be given to you in the form of typed handouts. This is exam-ready study material, very well-researched, concise study material. In the same handout which we've given to you here, You have also reading list of books, but that reading list is provided for the candidates who want to prepare on their own. They can refer to that reading list. But if you are with us, then you don't have to read this reading list. The notes have been prepared from the same set of books, well-researched notes, which would adhere to the requirement of the examination. What is the requirement of the examination? Requirement of the examination, students, is, for example, you may have a book on Western political thought, in which there's a chapter on Plato. Chapter is 100 pages long. 100 pages of Plato chapter. And in the exam, how many words you have to write? 200 words. You know the requirement of the exam? The word limit in exam is 150 words or 250 or 300 and 350 words. So in order to write 200 to 300 words, you end up reading 100 pages. Will you not have a difficulty summarizing all of this? Will you not have a lost feeling? So therefore, you need material which is exam ready, which is well researched, which is summarized, concise, which you can exactly replicate in the exam. So that material will be provided for you for the entire syllabus, all the chapters. Then also, students, this particular course is, we do understand that there are interlinkages in both optional papers, optional paper 1 and optional paper 2. A good candidate is who is able to identify those linkages and able to reproduce those linkages in the exam. That would really impress the examiner if you can identify the linkages between paper 1 and paper 2. And that is what we also provide here. Me and Sushant sir will both make sure that topics are taught in such a manner in sync between paper 1 and paper 2. For example, if you study Marx in paper 1, the next day you will have the lecture on Marxist theory in IR. Because you have Karl Marx in paper 1 also and Marxist theory in paper 2 also, you should be able to identify the interlinkages. Then also, students, as far as the course is concerned here, personal guidance and mentorship is provided by the faculty members. Both of us will be available for you all the time. We'll have our own classroom group, our Telegram group, where we'll always stay in touch day and night. And whatever problems you may have, you can directly get in touch with faculties to get your problem resolved. And the most important part of the course, students, is an answer writing program. You know what we have realized? Pattern of the exam has changed now. The pattern of the exam has changed. It is not just about memorizing the content. It is also about a writing skill now. Because within 3 hours, you have to attempt 19 questions in your optional paper, which is a very big challenge. And in the optional paper, students, you are going to face 3 challenges in the optional paper. Which are those 3 challenges? First, of course, is time limit. Within 180 minutes, you have to attempt 19 questions. You can do your maths, how many minutes you have to devote to one question. Second, the challenge which you will face is going to be word limit. For each and every question, the word limit is prescribed. You cannot go beyond the word limit. The third challenge which you are going to face is a space limit. And what do you mean by space limit? As far as the answer script is concerned, when you get an answer script in your PSIR paper, you will get a defined amount of space in which you have to write your answers. It's not like your college exam. You remember your college exams? What do you do in your college exam? You get an answer script. If you have written the wrong answer, if you think that you haven't done very well, then what do? You cut down the page like this, and you may say, Sir, PTO, please turn over. Okay, give me an extra sheet. And then you keep on borrowing extra, keep on taking extra sheets. At the end of the exam, you tie the paper with a thread. You remember those college days? And you submit. UPSC doesn't do this. UPSC, you can't take any extra sheet. This option is not available. You will get an answer script in which question is printed on the top and defined amount of space is given. You have to write the answer in that defined amount of space. If you do a mistake, you cannot go back. You cannot correct that. So there's a space limit. You cannot take any extra sheet. There's a space limit, there's a time limit, there's a word limit. So you have to overcome these 3 challenges to attempt the paper very well. Therefore, one key aspect of the success mantra right now, as far as optional paper and even GS paper, is that you have to develop a very good answer writing skills. So we realize here that 50% of the job is content. 50% of the job is understanding topics, memorizing topics. The remaining 50% of the job is answer writing skills. If you're not able to express yourself in the exam, what is the point of studying all this then? Therefore, in our classroom program, answer writing program is an integrated part of the classroom program. Whenever we teach you any topic in the class, whenever any topic is taught to you in the class, after the end of the discussion, we will discuss all the PYQs, previous year questions. All PYQs, all previous year questions will be discussed in the classes. Then at the end of the week, you will have a weekly test. On the weekend, you will have a weekly test, a small test where you are supposed to write 2 to 3 questions. This weekly test will be conducted on the basis of the topics we have discussed throughout the week. Every weekend, you will have a weekly test. And then once a month, you will have a sectional test. A sectional test will be a bigger test, 200 marks, 150 marks. And then at the end of the course, you will have full-length tests. So the weekly test, sectional test, FLTs will be conducted throughout the course. And you will be given evaluated feedback and also model answers for all the questions. And all PYQs will be discussed. Answer writing workshops will be conducted during the course. Equal amount of focus is on teaching and also equal amount of focus on helping you develop your answer writing skills. This is part of the course so that you get a one-stop solution, so that you are ready products when you finish your course. So this is a very important part of our course, answer writing program and discussion of PYQs. And also students, we will keep on sharing, even if your course is over here. We are not going to leave your hand unless you don't get selected. So whatever new updates may happen in the subject, updated class material will be given to you. We constantly will keep on posting it on the portal. For example, this year we had Operation Sindoor. So new developments have happened on India-Pakistan relations. So the batches which have passed out last year or in the month of April, we are still sharing notes with them, content with them. We'll keep on posting for them that these are new developments which have happened. You also incorporate this. So all that material will be provided. And lastly, students, and yes, you will have a lecture every day, 2.5-hour class every day. We don't give any breaks. We also have a test on the weekend. Yes, of course, whatever national holidays may happen, then you may get a break. And the last thing which I would like to specify here and stress upon here is timely and comprehensive coverage of the syllabus. Our promise to you is to finish the course within 26 weeks. Even if it may go up, the plus minus 1 or 2 weeks, you can add, not more than that. That is our promise to you. Within 6 months, much within the 6 months, or preferably within 5.5 months, we'll be able to finish the course. We've done this for all our previous batches. You may even inquire with your senior students. And why do we do this? Because we respect your time, students. You're all civil service aspirants, and you are paying a very heavy cost to prepare for civil services. You know which is that cost? What cost do you think you're paying for preparing for civil services? Opportunity cost, yes. You have all paused your professional careers to prepare for civil services. Your classmates, your college mates must be pursuing higher education or must be making their professional careers. But you have pressed a pause button on your career because you are trying to prepare for civil services. So you are foregoing all these opportunities. These are the golden years of your life, golden period of your life. You are at the highest stage of productivity right now. And you are paying a heavy opportunity cost to prepare for civil services by foregoing all these opportunities. Therefore, we value your time and we conduct our course and our class in such a professional manner that we're able to finish the entire syllabus within the given time, that is 26 weeks. So that you are exam ready and you also get enough time for self-study also so that you can appear in the exam. It's not going to be a situation where the course is going on for 9 months, 10 months, 1 year, 1.5 years. No. Timely coverage of the syllabus is the key aspect of our course. That's our promise to you. So this is the key features of our course, which I've explained to you. This methodology we are going to follow. We also expect cooperation from you in this methodology so that you can benefit from this course. So students, this is the discussion which I wanted to have regarding paper 2 and the key features of the course. Now we are going to open up the floor for Q&A session where you may ask your questions and queries and we will be very happy to answer. If any questions you may have, please go ahead.
Yes. So you are in fledgling course this year. Okay. So point is that, there is something called as early bird advantage. Okay. When you are planning to appear, 28. So if you're planning to appear in 28, I suggest to join next year. Okay, that makes sense, because had it been 27, I would ask you to join right now. So 28, you can join with us next year in April batch. That will help you in that. Okay.
Yes, Satya, what do you want to ask? What kind of marks overlay PSI having than other optional, and does any claims overlap? Yes, of course, you will it will, whatever topics are overlapping with the GS syllabus, that will help you in your prelims paper also. Whatever IR questions or polity questions you may get in the prelims paper, a PSIR student is easily able to attempt all of them. These are the easiest questions for a PSIR student. And of course, it's one of the most scoring optionals as compared to other subjects. We have seen the recent trend that is one of the most scoring optionals, and success rate is very high. There's no doubt about that. Anything else you'd like to ask students? Yes, go ahead.
So everything will be taught from the scratch.
It's from the scratch. I told you that irrespective of your background, you will be comfortable in that. Just stick to what is taught in the class and what is expected of you in the class. That's it.
Majority of our students are not from the humanities background at times.
I told you. See, it will come gradually. Okay. First, you have to, as sir pointed out, that you have to understand it in a crystal clear manner. Conceptual clarity is important. Then, as we discussed PYQs, there were, for example, art of answer writing. There is question tags, and you have to first understand demand of the question. Initially, you may make mistakes in understanding, but as the course proceeds with gradual practice, you will develop that skill. And that is why we have made PYQs plus weekly test and sectional test, which we conduct, an integral part of our course. So that is to know, unless you are able to apply whatever knowledge you have got in solving the PYQs, in attempting the questions, you will not be able to do well in mains. And that's over a period of time. In a progressive manner, you will develop your skills. Don't worry, that we will take care of.
Yeah, analytical understanding, analytical skills, they would develop as you attend the course. Like today, you had just one session with us. We'll have, how many, around what?
180.
180 such sessions. And after 180 such sessions, of course, you can understand how your analytical skills will develop. We'll have in-depth discussion about all topics, previous year questions, like you sir mentioned, the test and everything, and we'll help you develop your analytical understanding. That happens gradually. It is not going to happen overnight. When the first test you will write pathetic answers. I always tell my students, when the first weekly test in the course, I tell my students, you have one goal. You have to come tomorrow morning, write a test, and write the worst answers you can. Because the biggest fear in the mind is that I do not want to write bad answers. You have to get that fear out. Write bad answers. If you will write bad answers, then only you will start writing good answers. So we'll do that training. And also for the question which you asked, non-humanities, there would be no such problem. In fact, majority of many successful candidates, PSIR successful candidates, are not from humanities. Humanities background candidates also succeed in the PSIR optional paper. Same amount of non-humanities candidates also succeed in PSIR optional paper. Our old students also have qualified the exam and scored very good ranks. They have been from non-humanities also. So in the class, we make sure we start from the scratch. We start from the scratch, from the bottom, from level 0. We start assuming that you do not have any knowledge about political science and international relations. And from 0, we start to develop all your concepts, and we make sure that all students are able to understand. It will be done in a very simplistic manner, in a very detailed and comprehensive manner. So you don't need not worry about that.
Regarding Satya's question, I have discussed it in the beginning, that how you must see the material also. That is uploaded on the portal also. That how I talked about utility of PSIR as an optional. So it has overlapping areas in all GS papers. And if I include essay also, all 5 papers of GS. So that I've already touched upon that. You have got the material also. You can check for your own reference. And that is why it is one of the reasons why students prefer PSIR, because of its utility as far as GS is concerned. Convergences with the GS syllabus is great as compared to other optionals.
And your optional classes, Saj Mary is asking when it's going to start. It's going to start on 10th of October.
2:30 p.m.
2:30 p.m. 10th of October. Yes, Bhavya.
What is Bhavya's question now?
Yes, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Sir, how we do interlinkages between the answer of people first and
Mm.
we bring friends.
That will come with first having conceptual clarity of the topics. Like if you see the second topic is state in both the papers, paper 1 section A and paper 2 section A. So once you are done with both the concepts, then you will be able to link automatically. Don't worry about that.
And that's what we will also do it for you. We will tell you, both of us will tell you that these topics are interrelated. Like I told you, the day when sir teaches Marx in paper 1, the next day you'll have a lecture on Marxist theory of IR. The day when he teaches liberalism in paper 1, next day you'll have a lecture on liberal theory in IR. So the interlinkages, there are certain topics which are in both the papers. Human rights is paper 1 also, human rights is in paper 2 also. Democracy is in paper 1 also, paper 2 also. So we will use that interlinkages to develop better understanding for you. Okay. Bhavya, that's a very personal call you have to make. You have to read the syllabus, which you attend the session today. I'm sure you now are very well aware about the syllabus. So if you're able to connect with it, if you're able to develop interest in it, and if you think that you're going to enjoy this whole exercise of studying political science and international relations, then you should go for it.
And Bhavya, remember
Yes.
the 3 points which I raised initially. Your interest, second is your intention to work hard, and third is your proper guidance. We are ready to give you third as well as spike your interest in one, but this lies with you. If you're ready to work hard, say it always takes 2 hands to clap. If you're ready to work hard, we are already there to hold you. So we'll handle your preparation irrespective of your background. Need not worry about that.
Shwangi, that's very encouraging that you really like the classes. But, the query which you have particularly asked, I would like to tell you that you'll have to manage your time. You'll have to manage your time. You'll have to manage your GS classes and your optional classes, because you cannot wait for a time when you attend GS classes separately, optional classes separately. Then it will take 2 years to finish your courses. And then when you will get the time to do self-study and prepare for the exam. So learn to manage your time. If you're attending 2 to 3 classes a day, still you find 3-4 hours for self-study. And of course, all the courses are not going to run parallelly. If you're joined one, for example, you're part of a CSAT course may run only for 2 to 3 months, and then you will be free from that. So you have to find time and manage time. That's one challenge. Of course, not only you, majority of the students are facing this challenge, how to manage time. How can we attend GS classes also and optional classes also and then do self-study also? But that's a challenge which you have to do, because you have to also expedite your preparation. You can't wait for a moment when you are finished with your GS course and then you do your optional course. First of all, it's going to be more taxing for you, more expensive for you also. You can't just keep on staying in this area forever. You have to finish your classes, go back home, do your self-study and ace the exam. So I would recommend try and manage time. And if you still have problems, then you can get in touch with us. We can help you, counsel you how to do that.
Now, notes making, self-notes making is always advisable. So no, make notes as a matter of gist. Suppose if you are done with Plato's theory of justice. So what is the influence? What are the essence? What are the positive merits and demerits? That's it. And that will come gradually. That's why the purpose of having weekly test, the purpose of giving you a concise exam ready material is to lessen your burden. As Iqbal sir told you that all these materials have been prepared from those standard books itself. So that is to help you in have exam ready material. And if you on top of that, if you make a concise thematic notes, that will help you in revision. 2:30 to 5 o'clock. The same GS batches you are having, 2:30. Same timing, 2:30 to 5. If it is clashing, there are multiple GS batches running here. You can apply for shift. That's not an issue.
That's of course at the end of the syllabus. We'll have a couple of FLTs, because in order to have an FLT, first of all, syllabus should be complete. So there'll be more, of course, there'll be more weekly tests and more sectional tests. And FLTs will be held only at the end of the course. Okay. And as far as clash of timings is concerned, like I mentioned, in multiple GS batches. So the team will coordinate with you and you can change your GS batch timings, and so that your GS and optional class doesn't clash. Yeah. So like P22 and P23 started together. Okay. So if you are in P22 and it's clashing with your optional timings, you may move on to P23, which will not clash. And double class, I understand you are having double GS lectures now because the GS batch has this batch is the latest batch. So now to finish the course, it is happening. So in that case, you will have a little difficulty. You'll have to probably attend a few days of the week. You'll have to attend 3 classes, 2 GS lectures and 1 optional class. So that you'll have to manage. You'll have to find
The material which are
no, they will make sure it doesn't clash. So if you're in P22 and it's clashing with 230, they'll give you another batch. They'll give you, for example, P23 or P21, which doesn't clash with your optional batch. So they will make sure it doesn't clash, that they will cooperate with you. But 3 classes you will have to attend. That of course will be there. Okay. That nobody can do anything about it. Okay. If there's a double lecture of GS. And I don't think 7 days a week you have a double class in GS. No, not all 7 days. Okay. So, and that's only for P23 and P22, I believe. The latest batches. Okay. So you can make that adjustment.
Material must be in the handout section or in the mains material section.
Mains material section.
Mains
These are just handouts which we had given for just today's discussion. And it may be there. The technical team will help you. Where is the material you may just mentioned in the chat box?
There is only one GS batch, that is at 2:30. If you are enrolled in any GS batches, that will be obviously with, if you include GS batch, obviously it means 2 classes a day, 1 optional, 1 GS. Okay.
So any more doubts, students, you have? Yes, any more new questions? Are there any new messages?
I think Satya is asking some questions, please.
Any new messages, please?
See, Satya, there is no shortcut to success. You have to go through you have to take running notes of the class lecture as well as go through the material. Then comes the stage of making your own notes.
Yeah, you have to study class material and class handouts and class notes. And then if for your own convenience, you can make your own short notes, which will expedite revision later. But you have to go through the grill. You shortcut and jugaad solutions not going to work.
Process is important.
Process is very important. Yes, Shivangi?
Niche, scroll niche karna.
That's we have discussed already.
Then niche ek aur question.
There's one more question. Please scroll down. Please scroll down.
Timing is 2:30 p.m. Shivangi.
Yes. So I think we've dealt all your queries. Any doubts? Any more doubts?
That will come. That's why I emphasized in the beginning that you need to know syllabus as well as PYQs. Don't worry, that will gradually get the hang of it. And whenever any important article comes in the newspaper related to either of the paper, that will mention in the class. You can look in that. Yes, as far as optional specific is concerned. Don't worry about that. Because see, point is whatever concepts you are learning, okay, that as your understanding develops, you will be able to understand any news editorial in a better manner. So whichever theoretical understanding, conceptual clarity which you have developed in either of the paper, it will definitely help you understand any current developments in a better manner. A utility aspect, application aspect, that will come automatically. Don't worry about that.
One of those online students on YouTube is asking the questions, sir, will syllabus complete on time? That's what I discussed with you. I had an elaborate discussion with you that's our first priority, to complete the syllabus on time in desired amount of time. And Angel Roy is asking about the major articles of the Constitution. Of course, you'll have to memorize certain major articles of the Constitution, which we will teach you and guide you in the classes. Okay, fine. Clear to all of you? Okay. You can get in touch with us after the session here. Fine itself. Clear to all of you? Understood? So thank you, online students. Thank you all of you for this for participating in this session. I hope it benefited all of you. So thank you, everybody. God bless you. All the best.
Thank you all of you
so much.
Thank
you,
everybody.
हाँ हाँ